child's perspective, it's how depending on the age, how do I adapt, and is it easy, based on the dynamic of you, the adult, coming into my life.
Mm-hmm.
So the younger the child is, there can be two components here. One is that you're a real jerk, and therefore I don't like you, or you're really nice, and I do like you. And I learned, I've seen both situations where kids grow up and the step-parent is an animal, just really obnoxious and inappropriate. And the kid experiences that, but that would happen in an intact nuclear family if the parent was like that. Then you get the parent that's really nice, and the kid growing up likes that person. So, I experienced that both with males and females. My observation has been males tend to be a bit more independent than females, meaning as males become more emancipated, they go out there in the world and they become less dynamic with their family of origin. They're creating their own family of origin. Females tend to hold a relationship with their family of origin. But we have so much mobility in this culture that impacts. Depending on how a child adapts is, my observation has been based on age, how willing. After a child hits adolescence, this is really fast. A child hits adolescence, starting at around maybe 10 years old, pre-adolescence, someone remarries. That child sees that person as my mother's husband or my father's wife. Younger, that person can grow that in the eyes of the child into, you're a parent to me. Mm-hmm. Not just by words of law, you're my stepfather, my stepmother, but you really are like a parent to me. So I can have two dads, two moms, whatever it might be, and I experience that. But when I start to move towards abstraction and emancipation, I don't see you as a parent. I see you as my mother's whatever or my father's whatever, husband, wife. And so the adaptation is really one of age, one of dynamic between how the parent relates to the child, and again, whether they're appropriate with the adolescent or the younger child, or inappropriate. Again, this is anecdotal. My experience generally about parental alienation is supported with Joan Kelly's work, and that is that the parent who is, charging, stating that there's parental alienation syndrome from Gardner, that in fact that often is self-alienating to the child. Mm-hmm. So I charge you with you're alienating our children from me. The reality is that I've seen very frequently, I myself have alienated the children, and it's much easier to blame you than to look at myself. I am not saying there aren't situations where a parent has alienated the child from the other parent. Even in those situations, I have seen that the parent who's making the claim is very frequently alienating them by themselves, in addition to you may be supporting that role.
My heart, and as it fell, you rose to claim it. It was dark.
Very frequently, that parent is unavailable to them. They're doing other things. They're not in a relationship. My experience has been, okay, so here's a gender issue, gender bias. My experience has been that females tend to be more in a relationship with a child than males. Males tend to be more in task. So I will take my child somewhere as a task. You will take our child somewhere. I need something that I have to get accomplished, but I'll be in a relationship while I'm doing that. There are males who do that also, and there are females who also do things as a task. But when I put it in a scope of all the females and all the males, the vast majority of females grasp the concept of a relationship as a process, and the vast majority of males grasp relationship as a task. And there are those exceptions where some males grasp it as a process and some females grasp it as a task. So, I think that the younger the child, the more that child's going to want to be in a relationship of process, because it's more nurturing, it's more the dynamic that I'm in a relationship with you.
Okay. So now for the
I mentioned this in class, well over 5,000 mediations. And there is none. It's like the child that hardly has any time, who wants to spend more time, it's not enough, or it's too much. The child who has 50-50, I don't like it because I can never be with one parent, or friends are over here and I'm over there. The child that has, too much time says, I don't want to do this, versus, So there is no perfect schedule, none. And just like there's no perfect intact nuclear family, except that the child has nowhere to go. When you get a divorce, there are options that you won't have in an intact nuclear family, just as there are options in an intact nuclear family that you don't have in a divorce family. So maybe this leads to the answer to a question that we were talking before you started recording, and that is, I don't see it as gender bias in terms of the way it gets established. What I try to do is establish it initially as close to what the child is familiar with. I don't care if the mother is the primary parent. I don't care if the father is the primary parent. I don't care if they're equal parents. What I am concerned about is what I want the child to do is do something that they're familiar and know. And then we can grow over a period of time to modify it. But when people come in for mediation, what I'm trying to discern is what is the status quo? And I want to try to start that. And then we go from there. The difficulty I run into with that is that it's not uncommon where the mom is the primary parent, whether that be because of a mutual decision, or just that I can make more money being the provider, or you can make more money being the provider. Whatever the structure is, I tend to see that in an intact nuclear family, generally the female is doing more of the details of relationship process, and the male is doing more of the task dynamics. So what ends up happening is you and I are living in the same house, and I'm there, and I think I'm there 50% of the time, but you're actually spending about 80 to 90% of the time doing the parenting. So that gets exacerbated when a couple gets a divorce, and I'm with the child 20% of the time, and you have 80% of the time, and I'm thinking, but I had 50% before, when I didn't. I was just there. And sometimes it's reverse. Yeah, but the vast majority of the time it's the female doing the primary process. Rarely find that a child will come out with accurate information of what happened, but they will be able to discern, the vast majority that I have interviewed will be able to discern what the dynamic is in terms of the relational interaction. My parents are always fight. Mom starts the arguments, or dad starts the argument. They know the dynamic. They may not know the details of that.